Well, one thing I've been emphasizing, and I appreciate your critique, if I'm off base, but the the signing of the comprehensive security agreement between Russia and Iran that took place on 17th January. I think that was significant because it gave Iran some reassurance now that whatever doubts it had previously about could they rely upon Russia, particularly in the wake of the debacle in Syria, that this put Russia firmly in their camp. Then we come to March. The first week and a half of March, you get Russia, Iran, and China conducting that joint naval exercise. Then after the end of that military exercise, you get the first meeting of the foreign ministers or their senior officials in, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze here. You get the first meeting in Beijing between Iran, China, and Russia. Then that was followed up with the meeting last week, a week ago Tuesday, in Moscow, the same three, where they're talking about Iran's dealings with the United States and this unfolding. I think the West has dramatically underestimated the importance of what Russia and China are doing with Iran. That they're not just superficial contacts. What's your view?
I'm a little bit different in the sense that, clearly there is really close coordination taking place, China, Russia, and Iran, about everything, because the Chinese, when they came back so quickly with tariffs on the United States, this has been thought about, it has been worked out. The Chinese put out a statement, in fact, the CCP put out a statement saying this was expected, this was planned for, we were ready for it, and they did it. Bam. Mm-hmm. This is our response. That was coordinated. You remember there was a 90-minute call with Putin about 2 months ago or something like that. And the main discussion, we don't know any details about it, but the main discussion seems to have been really that America would try and put a wedge between Russia and China, and how do we stop it? Right. And also probably a discussion about America will try and use, if you like, its position to put a wedge or to put leverage on Iran through Russia, and how do we manage that? Now, having said that, having talked to many Russians about Syria and the backdrop to Syria and so on, I just think there's one thing that it needs to be clear, and I think this is right. If it's not right, you can say so, but I think it is. The Russians say to me, listen, when it comes to the Middle East, to Syria and other things, we are here fighting the whole of NATO. Right. This is our prime interest. This is what we're all about. It's very unlikely we're going to, unless, the situation becomes in extremis. But, we have our hands full fighting, whatever number of countries that are lined up in NATO against us. And so we're not looking and don't think that we're going to sort of intervene in Syria or Iran easily. Yeah, they'll provide air defenses, equipment, perhaps specialists, training. I'm sure that's happening. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt of it. But would they intervene militarily? They will only take that decision at the time and in the circumstances that transpire, because one thing is quite clear. I've been involved in sort of conflicts over many, many years, and my whole experience is that whatever one says about how the war will go, whatever war we're talking about, it dissolves within 24 hours.
Yes,
it's gone.
Fully agree.
And it's all changed. And so I think the Russians will watch it very carefully. They have a good relationship, but much of that agreement was about, the underlying things. Why is Iran so important to Russia? Because it sits on the north-south corridor. That's it. It sits on the east-west corridor. And also Iran has the security contacts for the whole of the stans, Central Asia, who are complex political structures. Russia and China need its experience there too, to keep security, because this is the area of the Belt and Road. This is the future growth of the global economy, lies in Asia, which is just on the cusp of a major step up in its sort of industrialization, and like in right up to Siberia, where it is just humming with new activity, new businesses, and everything up there. So Iran, it's not that they're being nice to Iran. It's their interest,
absolutely,
and Iranian interest to keep this going. But I think they will first of all see if Iran can handle it itself, and it might well be able to handle it itself without help from outside, because they have been preparing for this war for 20 years, and so I think they may well first of all see if Iran can deal with it, and it might well be able to deal with it. I don't know what sort of and if I did know, I wouldn't be saying. But they obviously have 3 different air defense systems. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah,
and they have some and the over horizon radars that Iran has, they made. And they are the result of their own work. They're not brought in from Russia or China. So, it's wrong to think of Iran as a sort of, not really up there in the first rank in terms of technology. Out of the 10 leading sort of engineering institutions in the world, I think about 6 are in Iran. I mean, they are in engineering and technology. They are, that's why Russia gets its drones from Iran, and China does research projects jointly there. So I would guess they'll probably sort of see if Iran can manage it alone. Now, that will depend a lot on whether Israel is weaker than even we think it to be, or if it turns out that it's stronger, and if America has got more capabilities than are expected. None of us know those answers. But I think that the Iranians might have sense of it. Don't get put off. I think that, this line, oh, well, we could do a deal, it wouldn't take much to do a deal. I think there's deep skepticism inside Iran about, that they'll ever be allowed to do anything approaching a reasonable deal, that America will never permit that, because it's all driven by Israel. It's not about American interests or American rationality. You can make the case that, America could live with this or live with that, but they know it's not about that. It's all about Israel. And so I think there's a sort of phlegmatic sort of position where, and I agree with this, is that, it's been inevitable. A trial of strength is coming. It had to come, really, in some respect, because, there wasn't going to be an agreement. And so a trial of strength is likely, and its outcome will probably then determine whether what comes next, what will happen in the region. It's interesting, the Saudi defense minister's in Tehran today. I think they'll be having an interesting discussion. Trump is pinning everything on the Gulf. My own personal view is he's making a big mistake, because perhaps he hasn't really understood, who are these emirs and kings and monarchs, and the degree of which, these police states don't really have quite, the heft compared with a 5,000-year-old civilization. Anyway, I mean, that's just a personal view that he's, he may find that they're not quite as strong or capable as he thinks they are. But that's his choice and his decision. And we'll see what comes out in all of this.
Well, I was just going to close out with this, that you and I both, in our experience with the different government agencies and entities, there's always the public perception that there's somebody in government that actually knows what it's doing, that they've got a plan, that they're putting it into effect. And at least in my experience, I've seen that is absolutely not true. That there's always a lot of assumptions that surely somebody's looked at this, surely somebody's considered that. And it's like, no, actually they haven't. It's not till their hair is on fire that they say, does anybody have a fire extinguisher?
All right.
So
let me just finish with the last little thing that I would say to you. And I can't guarantee that this is entirely accurate. But this is, there was the message that was sent by Trump to through the Emiratis, and then the reply came back from the Omanis. But my understanding, and what I have been told, was there were 5 demands in the original message before the meeting with Witkoff. 1, dismantling Iran's nuclear infrastructure, halting uranium enrichment, ceasing arms transfers to the Houthis, ending financial support for Hezbollah, and disbanding the popular mobilization forces in Iraq. I cannot tell you that that's authentic, but it came from Emirati views, who were the ones delivering a message. But it wouldn't surprise me if that was what was actually put on writing.